SHH. It is late. The world outside has quieted down, and the only sounds left are the soft hum of your home, the distant murmur of a passing car, the breath of the air itself moving through the room. You are settled now, are you not? Perhaps under a blanket, perhaps with a cup of something warm nearby. The day's brightness has faded, and your mind is beginning to slow, like a river after the spring melt, easing into a gentler current. Let us travel together then, not across miles, but across millennia. Let us go back to a time when the stars were the only lights in the night sky, and the earth groaned under the weight of a sun that seemed to never tire. We are going to the land between two rivers, the place we call Mesopotamia. It is a name that means something simple and profound, the land between the rivers. And those rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, they are the veins of this ancient world. They bring life, but they also bring chaos. Imagine for a moment that you are a farmer there, some 5,000 years ago. You wake before dawn, because the heat is already a presence, a gentle but persistent pressure on your skin. You step out of your mud brick home. The walls are thick, and they hold the cool of the night for a little while, but you can feel the day beginning to stir. The air smells of damp earth and dust, and a faint sweetness from the date palms that line the fields. You stretch your arms, and your joints pop, and you look out at the land that is your life, your worry, your hope. The Euphrates is not far. You can hear its low, constant voice, a murmuring that has been there since before your great-grandmother's grandmother was born. But today, you are not listening to it with your heart. You are listening with your eyes. You are watching the water level. The flood season is coming. It always comes. It is as reliable as the sun and as unpredictable as a dream. Some years the river swells gently, like a cat stretching after a long nap, and it kisses the fields with just enough moisture to make the barley sing. Other years, it rises with a fury, tearing chunks of riverbank away, swallowing crops whole, and leaving behind a landscape that looks like the inside of a wound. And then, after the flood recedes, the summer arrives. And it is not a gentle summer. It is a hammer. The sun climbs higher, and the air shimmers above the cracked clay. The heat does not just warm you, it presses against you. It dries your skin. It makes the seeds of doubt sprout in your mind. How do you survive this? How do you coax food from a land that seems determined to swallow you whole? The answer is not in a single trick. It is not a secret weapon or a magic charm. It is a whole way of thinking, a slow, patient conversation between the farmer and the earth. It begins with the observation of the rivers. The farmers of Mesopotamia did not have weather satellites or flood warnings. They had their grandfathers and their grandfathers' grandfathers, and the poems and songs that carried the memory of what the water did. They knew that the flood would come in the spring, when the snow melted in the mountains far to the north. But when exactly? That is the question that kept them awake on warm nights. So they built something that sounds simple, but was a revolution. They built canals. They dug long, straight channels from the river into their fields. They built levees, raised embankments of packed earth, to hold the water back, to guide it, to to make it behave. Imagine the work of it, not with machines, but with simple tools, with baskets of earth, with shovels made from the shoulder blades of oxen, with bare hands and backs that bent under the sun. Entire villages would come together to dig, working in rhythm, the sound of earth falling into water, a steady, wet slap. They did this not once, but year after year, because the canals would silt up, the levees would erode, and the river would always try to reclaim its freedom. And these canals did more than just bring water. They did more than just prevent the flood from destroying everything. They allowed the farmers to control the timing of the water. They could open a sluice gate and let a gentle trickle soak the barley fields. They could close it and let the water rest. This was not just farming. This was a kind of dance, a choreography with the elements. The farmer became a partner with the river, not a victim of it. But even with canals, the summer heat was a beast. The sun would bake the soil into hard, cracked plates. The water in the canals would evaporate, leaving a white crust of salt on the earth. Salt is a silent killer in a farmer's world. It poisons the soil. It makes the barley turn yellow and stunted. So the Mesopotamian farmers had another trick. They practiced fallowing. They would let a field rest for a year, or maybe two, without planting anything. The weeds would grow, and the farmers would plow them under, letting the green matter rot and feed the earth. And the rains of winter, as light as they were, would help wash the salt away, deep into the ground where the roots could not reach it. This fallowing was not lazy. It was wise. It was the farmer saying, "I will not force you, earth. I will give you time to breathe." And the earth, in its silent way, responded. They also chose their crops carefully. Barley is the champion of Mesopotamia. It is tougher than wheat. It can tolerate a little salt. It can survive with less water. It is a humble grain, but it is the backbone of the whole civilization. They grew dates too, of course. The date palm is a strange and generous tree. It loves the heat. It sends its roots deep to find the water that the canals carry. Its fruit is sweet and nourishing, and its leaves can be used for shelter, for baskets, for fuel. A date palm is like a farmer's friend who never asks for much, but gives everything. And think about the work of harvesting. In the burning summer, the barley ripens. The fields turn a pale gold, and the heads of grain droop. The farmers go out with sickles, curved blades of flint or bronze. They cut the stalks, bundle them, and carry them to the thrashing floor. This is a flat area of hard-packed earth, often on a hilltop where the wind can catch the chaff. The farmers drive oxen over the bundles, or they use a simple wooden sled with stones embedded in its bottom. The animals walk in circles, and the grain is crushed free of the husks. Then comes the winnowing. The farmer lifts the mixture with a wooden fork and lets the wind carry away the lighter chaff while the heavier grain falls back to the ground. It is a quiet, rhythmic motion. The wind is a partner in this dance too. And all the while, the heat is there. The sun is an eye that never blinks. The farmers work early in the morning and late in the evening. The middle of the day is for resting, for sitting in the shade of a mud wall or a date palm, drinking water from a clay jar. The water is cool, but not cold. It tastes of the earth it was drawn from. The farmer's skin is dark from the sun, lined from years of squinting. He or she, because women worked in the fields too, their hands strong from thrashing and weeding. They sat together, talking quietly about the rain that might come or the water level in the canal. They told stories. They laughed about the time the donkey got into the garden and ate the young shoots. The humor is there in the details. It is a light thing, a small buoyancy that keeps the spirit afloat. Let us pause for a moment, here in the middle of the story. You are still there under your blanket, listening. The room is dark, and the world outside is asleep. But you are here with me in ancient Mesopotamia, under a sky that is just beginning to pale with the approach of dawn. The farmer wipes the sweat from his brow. He looks at the canal, at the water moving slowly, almost lazily, through the channel. It is his work, his effort, that keeps that water where it is supposed to be. And he knows that tomorrow, or the day after, he will have to walk the length of the canal again, checking for breaks, for leaks, for the first sign of trouble. Because the rivers are not tame. They are not pets. They are vast, ancient forces. The Euphrates can flood a plain for miles. The Tigris is faster, more dangerous, with a mind of its own. The farmers respected them. They did not try to conquer them. They tried to persuade them. They offered prayers and small sacrifices. They built temples to the gods of water and earth. Enki was the god of sweet water and wisdom. He was the giver of life and the keeper of the deep. The farmers would pour a little oil into the river or scatter barley as a gesture of gratitude. It is a strange kind of faith, one that is rooted in the silence of nature. You cannot argue with a flood. You cannot reason with a drought. You can only watch and wait and work. And you can cooperate. The canals and levees were not built by individuals. They were community projects. Imagine 100, 200 people working together under the sun. They dig, they pass baskets of earth, they tamp down the soil. Children bring water. Old people sharpen the tools. There is a rhythm to it, a chant sometimes, a simple call and response. The work is hard, but it is shared. And when the flood comes, the village does not face it alone. They stand together on the levees, watching the water rise. They reinforce a weak spot. They dig a diversion. Their survival is tied to each other. But for all their skill, they knew that they were not in control. There is a humility in that. The farmer, standing at the edge of the field at the end of a long day, the sun a red ball low on the horizon, knows that the outcome is not fully his to decide. He can do everything right, and still the river might break its banks. Still the summer might be too long. Still the locusts might come, a dark cloud that eats every green thing. And yet he goes out the next morning and does it again. He plants the barley. He opens the sluice. He trusts the earth. There is a story I read once from a clay tablet that is 4,000 years old. It is a poem about a farmer. It gives advice on how to plant. It says, press the seed into the soil firmly. Do not scatter it lazily. Water it at the right time. Watch for the weeds. It reads like a grandfather's voice, patient and firm. And at the end, it says something remarkable. It says, The gods have given you the land. Now give them your sweat. It is not a complaint. It is not a curse. It is an exchange. You give the work, and the land gives the harvest. That is the key. The farmers of Mesopotamia did not survive the floods and the burning summers because they outsmarted nature. They survived because they became part of it. They made themselves small enough to listen and strong enough to act. They dug canals and built levees, but they also watched the stars to know when to plant. They observed the behavior of birds. They felt the wind. Their knowledge was not written down in books, but carried in their hands, in the calluses on their palms, in the way they could tell from the color of the river if a flood was coming. Let me describe that moment for you, just before the flood. The river changes color. It turns a muddy brown, a lighter brown than usual. It smells earthy, alive. The water rises, not quickly, but steadily. The sound changes too, from a gentle slosh to deeper, more urgent rush. The farmer stands on the levee, and he can feel the vibration in his feet. The water pushes against the earth, testing it. The canal fills, and the fields lie waiting. If the timing is right, the flood will deposit a layer of fresh silt on the soil, a gift of nutrients. If the timing is wrong, it will wash away the young plants. The farmer waits. He can do nothing but wait. And then the water begins to recede. It falls as slowly as it rose. The land is soggy, wet, smelling of mud and decay. But underneath that, there is a promise. The earth is ready. The farmer goes back to his fields, his bare feet sinking into the soft soil. He takes a handful of it and feels it. It is cool and rich. He knows that soon he will plant, and the cycle will start again. The summer will come, and the heat will press down, and he will sweat and work and pray. But he will also have the memory of this wet earth, this gift of the river, to carry him through. You are still lying there, you, the listener of this story. Your breathing is slow. The room is quiet. I want you to imagine that you are that farmer for just a moment. Not the struggle, but the patience. The way the world is measured not in hours, but in seasons. The way a lifetime is measured not in years, but in the number of floods you have seen. 40 floods, 50. The way your hands know the shape of a clay jug, the weight of a basket of barley, the texture of a reed rope. The way you know your neighbors not by their faces alone, but by the sound of their footsteps, the pitch of their voice when they call out across the canal. The night is still deep around you. The story is just beginning. We have only touched the edge of this ancient world. There is more to discover about how these farmers managed the water, how they built cities from mud, how they wrote down their knowledge on clay. But for now, let us just stay here in this quiet moment, between the flood and the summer, between the river and the field. The world is soft, and the past is not so far away. You can almost see the date palms swaying in the breeze. You can almost feel the cool of the mud brick wall against your back. Now, let us drift a little further into the land. Let us look at the villages themselves, the small clusters of houses that dotted the plain. They were made of the same sun-dried brick, the same earth that the farmers worked. The roofs were flat, made of palm logs and reeds, packed with mud. In the summer, people would sleep on the roof, under the stars. They would wake with dust in their hair and the sound of the river in their ears. The villages were not grand. They were humble, but they were alive with the rhythms of daily life. Imagine the sound of a mortar and pestle thumping steadily as a woman grinds barley into flour, the smell of bread baking on a hot stone, the laughter of children chasing a stray dog, the lowing of cattle coming home from the pasture. This is the texture of existence, and the farmer is at the center of it, pulling the water from the river, turning the soil, planting the seed, harvesting the grain. Every meal that is eaten, every loaf of bread, every sip of beer, it all starts with him, with her, with the community. And we have not even spoken of the gods yet. The gods of Mesopotamia were many, and they were not always kind. They had moods. They could send a plague of ants to eat the grain. They could make the reeds grow thick and choke the canals. The farmer's life was a constant negotiation with the divine. He would offer a lamb or a basket of fruit to appease a god who seemed displeased. He would light incense and pray, and sometimes it seemed to work. The rains would come, the flood would be gentle, the harvest would be abundant. Other times it did not work, and the farmer would simply bend his head and accept it, because that is what you do when you live close to the earth. You do not demand, you ask, and then you wait. The stars are still moving overhead. The night is not over. We have a long way to go in this story. There are more secrets to uncover, more ways that these ancient people built their world. But for now, rest. Let the image of the date palms and the slow brown river stay with you. Let the quiet patience of those farmers settle into your bones. Tomorrow, we will talk about the canals again, the ones that still exist, some of them buried under centuries of sand. We will walk along the dry beds and imagine the water that once flowed there. But tonight, we are here in the sleepy twilight of history, and that is enough. Let us stay in that twilight a little longer. You and I, the warm air is still. The stars are a soft blur above the flat roof where you lie. There is a faint breeze carrying the smell of dust and dry reeds and something sweet, perhaps the last of the date harvest. In the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The river is a low murmur, a constant companion, like the breathing of a sleeping giant. This is the hour when the world feels most ancient, most patient. And in this hour, I want to tell you about the Shaduf. You have never seen one, but you can imagine it. A long pole balanced on a fulcrum, with a bucket at one end and a counterweight of clay or stone at the other. It is a simple machine, but it is the heart of the farmer's daily work in the dry months. When the river is low and the canals run thin, the farmer stands at the water's edge and works the Shaduf. He dips the bucket, pulls it up, swings it over, and empties it into a smaller channel. Over and over, hour after hour. The motion is rhythmic, almost hypnotic. You can hear the creak of the pole, the splash of the water, the soft grunt of effort. It is not a loud task. It is a quiet, persistent conversation between the farmer and the river. You might think this sounds tedious, but there is a kind of peace in it. The farmer's mind does not wander to deadlines or distant troubles. It stays in the present moment. The weight of the bucket, the angle of the sun, the thirst in his throat. He learns the language of the river by the resistance it gives. When the water is low, the bucket comes up heavier with mud. When it is high, the rope runs smooth. He knows, without looking, when the channel is full because the sound of the water trickling into the field changes from a splash to gurgle. This is not a skill learned from a book. It is a skill learned from repetition, from the body remembering what the mind does not need to think. And there is a certain dark humor in it, too. The farmers of Mesopotamia had a saying, or so a clay tablet tells us: the river is like a woman. It gives you life, but it will also drown you. They knew that the same water that brought the silt could also bring disaster. They laughed about it, not bitterly, but with the resigned acceptance of people who have seen too many seasons to be surprised. When a canal broke, they would tell a story about a god who had tripped over his own beard. When the locusts came, they would joke that the gods were having a feast and the farmers were just the caterers. This lightheartedness was not a denial of hardship. It was a way of carrying it, like a basket balanced on the head, without letting it break the neck. Now, let me describe the shaduf in more detail, so you can almost feel the rough wood under your own hands. The pole is usually made of a tamarisk branch, or sometimes a date palm trunk that has been cut and dried. It is about as thick as a man's arm, and maybe twice as long. The fulcrum is a mud brick platform, built up to chest height. The bucket is a woven basket sealed with bitumen, the black, sticky substance that seeps from the ground in some places. The counterweight is a lump of clay, shaped like a loaf of bread, tied with a rope. When the farmer pulls the bucket down into the water, the counterweight rises. When he lets go, the counterweight pulls the bucket up again, saving him the effort of lifting. It is a beautiful balance, a seesaw between gravity and labor. I read once that a shaduf can lift about a gallon of water over the course of a minute. In a day, that adds up to maybe a few hundred gallons. Inato water a small field, but not a large one. For that, you need a canal system, which we have already spoken of. But the shaduf is the last step, the intimate touch of the farmer with his land. It is the closest he gets to the river. He stands ankle deep in mud, or sometimes on a little platform made of reeds, and he works. And as he works, he sings. Not a formal song, but a simple melody, a few notes repeated, the same phrase over and over. The water comes, the barley grows, the children eat, the river knows. Something like that. The words do not matter. The rhythm is what counts. The way it makes the work go faster. The way it connects him to the other farmers working their own shadufs up and down the canal. They cannot see each other, but they can hear the singing, and they know they are not alone. In the heat of summer, the shaduf is a test of endurance. The sun beats down without mercy. The air shimmers above the mud. The farmer's skin is burned a deep brown, cracked at the knuckles. He wears a simple loincloth, or sometimes nothing at all, because cloth holds the heat and chafes when it is wet with sweat. He covers his head with a reed hat, wide-brimmed, that makes him look like a walking mushroom. And he works. He takes a sip from a water skin hung on the shadow pole, and the water is warm and tastes of the leather, but it is life. He spits the first mouthful onto the ground, an offering to the earth, and then he drinks. This is a ritual older than memory. You, lying under the stars, might feel a distant kinship with that farmer. The same sun will rise over you tomorrow, though you will greet it in a different way. The same thirst will be in your throat when you wake, but your water comes from a tap, not from a river you have to wrestle with a pole and a bucket. Perhaps that is why the story of the Shaduf is so calming. It reminds you of a world where effort is visible, where the connection between the task and the result is immediate and honest. The farmer does not wonder if his work matters. He sees the water spreading into the furrows. He sees the barley shoot up, green and tender. He sees the grain fill out, heavy and gold. He knows exactly what he has done. And now, let us leave the shadow for a moment and walk into the village at dusk. The work is done for the day. The tools are stored in the shared shed, a simple linta made of reeds and mud. The shadow poles are laid on the ground, their ropes coiled neatly. The women are returning from the well, balancing clay jars on their heads, their hips swaying with the weight. The children are chasing a ball made of rags. The elders are sitting on a low wall, smoking something that is not tobacco, passing a pipe made of a hollow reed and a clay bowl. The smoke is sweet and melancholy, like the smell of an old story. They are talking about the flood. Not the flood from last spring, but the flood that is coming. There is always a flood coming. The elders remember the great flood of their grandfather's time, the one that swept away 3 villages and left fish in the date palms. They recall the story with a mixture of horror and nostalgia. The water was so high, one says, that we had to tie the goats to the roof, and the roof floated away. The others laugh, a dry, wheezing laugh. The boy who is listening thinks it is a joke, but it is not entirely a joke. The roof did float away, and the goats swam to a mound of earth, and they survived. But the story has been told so many times that the tragedy has softened into a tale, a piece of shared history that binds them together. The boy, whose name might be Aiden Sin or maybe just boy, looks up at the stars. He has been learning the constellations from his grandfather. There is the plow and the bull and the shepherd. The shepherd is a group of stars that appears in the autumn, just before the rains. It tells the farmer when to prepare the fields. The boy can find it now, low in the east. He feels proud because he knows that this knowledge is power. When he is older, he will stand at the edge of the field and look for the shepherd, and he will know exactly what to do. Tonight, though, he is just a boy, tired from carrying water to the fields, and his eyelids are heavy. The villagers begin to drift to their roofs. They carry up mats and blankets, and sometimes a clay lamp with a wick floating in oil. The light is soft, a golden glow that casts long shadows. The roofs are flat and wide, and each family settles into its own space. There is the sound of murmured goodnights, the thump of a mat being spread, the rustle of a blanket. A baby cries and is quieted. A dog sighs, And then there is silence, broken only by the river's endless song. It is in this silence that the farmer, the one we have been following, closes his eyes. His name is Lugal, if you want to give him a name, though he would not have used it much. He is called the son of Enki, or the one from the third house. His name is not important. What matters is that he is asleep now, and his dreams are filled with water. He dreams of a canal that runs straight and deep, with clear water that sparkles in the sun. He dreams of a harvest so full that the storage bins overflow, and the village has enough to trade for copper and stone and the fine wool that comes from the mountains. He dreams of his children growing up strong, and of his grandchildren asking him how he survived the great flood of his own time. And his dreaming mind is also the mind of the listener, you who are also drifting. The line between his dream and yours becomes blurry. You are not sure if you are lying on a roof in Mesopotamia or in your own bed. The smell is different, but the feeling is the same. The warmth of the night, the gentle weight of sleep pressing down. The stars are the same stars, though the constellations have different names now. The river is the same river, though it has changed its course 100 times. Let us stay in this dream for a while. Let us visit the fields that Lugal tends. They are laid out in strips, each family's plot marked by a row of stones or a line of reeds. The soil is dark and crumbly, the silt that the river has brought down from the mountains for millennia. In the spring, after the flood, the fields are soft and wet. The farmer uses a simple plow, pulled by a pair of oxen. Plow is a forked branch, tipped with a sharp stone or a piece of copper if the farmer is lucky. It does not turn the soil deeply, it just scratches a furrow. The seeds are dropped in by hand, a handful at a time, then covered by a drag made of thorn bushes. It is quick, it is dirty, and it works. The poet of the clay tablet, the one I mentioned earlier, gives this advice. Do not let your ox stray into the neighbor's field. Do not let your plow wake the dead. The last part is a bit mysterious. Perhaps it means to be careful not to dig up the bones of ancestors buried in the field. Or perhaps it is a joke about lazy plowmen. We do not know, but there is a tenderness in these instructions, a care for the small details of life. The farmer is told to treat his ox kindly, to keep it fed and rested, because the ox is his partner. He is told to keep his tools sharp. He is told to watch the sky for the signs of rain or heat. It is a manual for a quiet life. And now, as the dream deepens, let us walk along the canal bank. The water in the canal is not still. It flows slowly, almost imperceptibly, but it flows. You can see the ripples where a fish breaks the surface. The fish is a carp, fat and lazy. The farmer sometimes catches them with a net or a basket, and the village eats well. The canal is lined with reeds, tall and green, and in among the reeds, a bird is singing. It is a nightingale, perhaps, or a bulbul. The song is liquid and sweet, a thread of silver in the dark. You stop to listen, and the farmer stops too, resting his hand on the shaduf pole. He does not hurry. There is nowhere to go that he cannot arrive at in his own time. The water in the canal is not only for the fields. It is for the animals, the cattle and the sheep, who drink from the lower end. It is for the women who come to wash clothes, beating them against flat stones and spreading them to dry on the reeds. It is for the children who paddle in the shallows, shrieking with joy. It is for the potter who mixes it with clay to make the pottery that holds the grain and the beer. It is for the brickmaker who shapes the mud into bricks and bakes them in the sun. The canal is the village's bloodstream, and everyone touches it at some point during the day. And if the canal breaks, if a crack forms in the bank, a small leak at first, then a tear, the farmer does not panic. He signals to the others, and they come, carrying bundles of reeds and baskets of earth. They work together, fast and calm, packing the breach, reinforcing the bank. It is a dance they all know the steps to. The water tries to escape, but the people hold it in. The farmer's hands are raw, but he does not stop. When the breach is sealed, they stand back, panting, and look at each other. No one speaks. They just nod, and then they go back to their own work. This is the life we are dreaming of. It is a life of cycles. The flood, the planting, the growth, the harvest, the dryness, the flood again. There's a comfort in the repetition, a rhythm that soothes the mind. The sun rises and sets. The moon waxes and wanes. The river rises and falls. The farmer is part of that rhythm, not separate from it. And that is why, when you think of him, you feel a sense of calm. He is not struggling against time. He is moving with it. You are still with me, I know. Your breathing is slow. Your eyes are closed. The words are washing over you like the water in the canal. I am the storyteller, and I am also drifting. We are together in this twilight, between the river and the field, between the past and the present. I will tell you more if you want to hear. There is the goddess Inanna, who loved the farmer and the shepherd, and who wept when her husband was taken to the underworld. There is the story of the first empire, of kings who built walls and dug canals, and who boasted of their achievements on clay cylinders. There is the beer, the thick, sweet beer that the farmers drank at festivals, and the way it made them laugh and dance under the moon. But those stories can wait. Tonight, let us rest with Lugal on his roof. The sky is a deep velvet, and the stars are like grains of barley scattered across it. The river is a soft whisper. The village is sleeping, and in that sleep, the farmer dreams and you dream with him. The world is old, and the night is long, and there is nothing to be afraid of. You are safe in the quiet of this ancient land. We have spoken of canals and shadows and the patience of the farmer. But there is another layer to this story, one that is often forgotten. It is the work of the women. In the village, the women are the keepers of the hearth and the storeroom. They grind the grain, they brew the beer, they spin the wool, they weave the cloth. They are the ones who manage the surplus, who decide how much to set aside for the next planting, how much to trade, how much to eat. Their hands are calloused from the mortar and the loom, and their backs ache from bending over the grinding stone. But they, too, have a rhythm. They rise before dawn to light the fire. They bake the flatbreads on a hot stone, and the smell fills the village. They carry water from the well. They tend the children. They work in the fields alongside the men when the harvest comes, and they have their own wisdom. They know which plants can be used for medicine, which roots can dye a cloth yellow, which herbs will soothe a crying child. They know the stories of the goddesses, the ones that are not always told in the temples, the stories that are passed between mothers and daughters in the quiet hours of the afternoon. They know that the earth is not just a field to be planted, but a living presence that gives and takes. They speak to the earth as they till it, as if it could hear them. And perhaps it can. There's a clay tablet that records a lullaby. It is one of the oldest lullabies in the world, written in Sumerian. It goes, "May the river bring you sweet water. May the fields give you soft sleep. May the date palm shade your dreams. Hush, my child, hush." The words are simple, but they carry the same tenderness that you might feel if you were holding your own sleeping child. The mother who sang that lullaby is long gone, but the words remain, etched in a piece of clay, and I am speaking them to you now. It is as if she is here, in this room, her voice soft and low. You are falling deeper now. The boundaries between stories melt away. The farmer, the mother, the child, the river, the star, they are all part of the same fabric. The night is vast, and we are floating in it. Tomorrow I might tell you about the ziggurat, the great stepped tower that reached toward the sky, and how the farmer saw it as a bridge between the earth and the gods. Or I might tell you about the trade routes, the caravans of donkeys carrying lapis, lazuli, and cedar logs, and how the farmer's barley was traded for goods from distant lands. But not now. Now we are still. The Shaduf is silent. The canals are still. The fields are resting under the dew that forms just before dawn when the air is coolest. The farmer turns in his sleep, and his hand reaches out as if to touch the water. Even in his dreams, he is connected. And you, my listener, are also connected. You have traveled with me through this ancient bedtime story, and you have found a piece of yourself in the dust and the reeds and the slow-moving river. There is no need to hold on to it. Let it drift. Let it settle. The night is long, and there is still time for one more breath, one more image. So close your eyes, if they are not already closed. Feel the mat beneath you, the warmth of the air. Hear the river, the one that exists only in this story, flowing through you. And know that the farmers of Mesopotamia, in their patient, humble way, are still alive somewhere in the rhythm of the earth. You carry them with you now. You are asleep. The story continues, but it does not need you to listen. It flows on like the river, like the seasons, like the quiet turning of the stars. You are resting, and that is enough. But the night is not all silence. In the distance, a drum begins to speak. It is soft at first, no more than a whisper carried on the air, a pulse that barely stirs the stillness. You hear it without quite knowing you hear it, the way you hear your own heartbeat when you are quiet enough. The drum grows a little louder, and then another joins it, and another. They are not hurried. They are patient, like the river. They mark a rhythm that is older than the village, older than the canals, older even than the memory of the first farmer who broke the earth with a wooden plow. This is the sound of a festival. The harvest is in. The grain is stored. The beer has been brewing for days in large clay jars, and the foam rises thick and sweet. The women have baked flatbreads and honey cakes. The children have gathered flowers and woven them into garlands. The men have cleaned the temple courtyard, sweeping away the dust and the debris of the dry season. The village is about to honor the goddess Nisaba, who taught the people to write and to count, and who also watches over the reeds and the barley. Or perhaps it is the god Dumuzi, the shepherd, who dies and is reborn with each season. The festivals shift with the calendar, but the feeling is always the same: relief, gratitude, and a little bit of wildness. You are still there, my listener, floating in the dream that is not quite a dream. You can see the torches flicker in the square. The flames cast long shadows that dance on the mud brick walls. The drummers sit in a circle, their hands moving in a steady, hypnotic pattern. Their faces are calm, almost trance-like. They have been playing for hours, and they will play until dawn. The music is not complex. It is a repetition, a heartbeat, a pulse that draws everyone into its current. The farmers step into the circle, their feet finding the rhythm without effort. They begin to move, slowly at first, then with more abandon. They are not dancing for an audience. They are dancing for the earth, for the sun, for the river that gave them life. And there is the beer. It is poured from large jars into smaller cups, passed from hand to hand. The taste is thick and milky, with a hint of sourness, a sweetness that lingers on the tongue. It is not like the beer you know today. It is more like a soup, a meal in a cup. The farmers drink it and feel their shoulders loosen, their laughter come easier. They tell stories. Someone recounts how a fox sneaked into the granary last week and was chased out by a dog with a limp. Someone else tells of a dream in which a giant flood covered the entire world, and only one man and his family survived by building a great boat. The story is old, older than the oldest grandfather, and everyone has heard it before. But they listen again, nodding, as if hearing it for the first time. The storyteller stands by the fire. He is an old man with a white beard and eyes that have seen too many summers. He speaks without hurry, letting the words settle like dust in the air. He tells of the flood, of the god Enki who warned the righteous man, of the ark that was filled with animals and seeds. He tells of the rain that fell for 40 days and 40 nights, until the world was covered in water, and only the top of the highest mountain remained. He tells of the dove that returned with a leaf, and the raven that did not return. And when he finishes, the group is silent for a long moment. The fire crackles. A child yawns. Then someone asks, "What happened to the man after the flood?" The old storyteller smiles. "He lived," he says. "He lived, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank too much wine, and he lay naked in his tent. And his sons saw him, and they covered him with a blanket. And he blessed them. And he died old and content." The listeners nod. The story is over. You are still in the dream, hovering above the square. The torches have begun to burn low. Some of the dancers have drifted away, falling asleep on mats in the corners of the courtyard. The children are curled up like kittens in the laps of their mothers. The drummers continue, but their rhythm has softened, slowed, as if they too are growing drowsy. The night is giving way to the first hint of gray in the east. The stars are fading one by one, like candles being snuffed by an invisible hand. And now the festival is ending, not with a bang, but with a sigh. The last of the beer is drunk. The leftover bread is gathered by the women to be dried and stored. The torches are extinguished, and the square falls back into shadow. The village is quiet again, but it is a different quiet than before. It is a quiet that has been filled with joy, with connection, with the shared memory of the dance and the story. The farmers will wake in a few hours, their heads heavy, their limbs sore, but their hearts light. They will return to the fields, to the canals, to the Shadov pole, but the echoes of the festival will stay with them, humming in their blood like a faint, low song. And you, my listener, have been part of it. You have danced, even if only in your mind. You have tasted the sweet sour beer. You have heard the flood story one more time. You are now drifting even deeper into a layer of sleep that is soft and thick, like a blanket of wool. The world of the ancient farmers is receding, but it is not disappearing. It is becoming a part of you, a quiet memory that will stay in your bones, ready to be recalled the next time you lie down and let your mind wander. Let us slow down even further. There is a detail I have not mentioned. It is the sound of the grinding stone. In the morning, after the festival, a woman will kneel by a large flat stone, and she will place a handful of barley on it, and she will take another stone, a round one, and she will push it back and forth, back and forth. The sound is rhythmic, soft, like a lullaby. She will grind the barley into flour, and the flour will be mixed with water and salt and baked into bread for the day. This sound is the heartbeat of the household. It is the sound that has been heard every morning for thousands of years, in thousands of villages, along thousands of canals. It is one of the oldest sounds in the world, and you can hear it now if you listen, in the quiet of your own room, in the gap between your breaths. There is also the sound of the cow, not loud, not urgent, just a low, gentle moo from the shed where the farmer keeps his animals. The cow is patient. She chews her cud, and her eyes are soft and dark. She gives milk, and the milk is used to make cheese and butter and to mix with the beer. The farmer talks to her sometimes, not in words, but in murmurs, the way you might talk to a friend who understands you without needing a sentence. The cow is part of the family. Her name is Lulu, or maybe Shag Shag, or maybe no name at all, just the cow. She is there, a warm presence in the cool of the stable, and her breath is a soft steam in the morning air. And there is the sound of the river, which we have spoken of before, but which you can never hear too often. It is low and constant, a hum that underlies everything. It is the sound of time itself, moving slowly, carrying silt and stories, and the memories of all the farmers who have ever stood on its banks. The river does not judge. It does not hurry. It simply flows, and in its flowing, it holds the world together. I want to tell you about the plow. It is a simple thing, made of a branch of tamarisk, with a sharpened point of flint tied to the end. The farmer drives it into the earth, and behind him, another farmer follows, scattering seed from a basket. The oxen pull, their shoulders straining, their breath thick. The earth opens like a wound, and the seed falls, and the earth closes again. It is a ritual, not just a task. The farmer asks for the blessing of the god Enlil before he starts. He whispers a prayer, or he simply stands still for a moment, his hand on the plow, his eyes on the horizon. He knows he is dependent on forces larger than himself. The rain, the river, the sun, the soil. They all have their own will, their own moods. He is not their master. He is their partner. And sometimes the partnership goes wrong. The river rises too high, and the canals overflow, and the fields are drowned. The farmer wades through the mud, pulling the stalks of his ruined barley, trying to save what he can. The women weep. The children go hungry. The village falls quiet, not with peace, but with grief. But the farmer does not give up. He cannot give up. He repairs the canals. He resows the fields. He prays to the gods for a better season. He knows that the river is not his enemy. It is a force of nature, like the sun and the wind, and it does not act out of malice. It simply acts, and the farmer learns to read its signs, to anticipate its moods, to work with it rather than against it. This is the wisdom that the ancient farmers carried in their bones. It is not a wisdom that can be written down in a book, like a list of rules. It is a wisdom that is passed from hand to hand, from father to son, from mother to daughter, through the work itself. It is the wisdom of knowing when to plant and when to let the field lie fallow. It is the wisdom of saving seeds from the best plants for the next year. It is the wisdom of building a house from mud and reeds, a house that will melt away in the rain after a few decades, to be rebuilt again and again and again. The impermanence is not a flaw. It is a feature. The house knows it will become mud again, and the mud will become a new house, and the cycle continues. And so, my listener, we are now floating in a space where time is not a line, but a circle. The farmer is there in the field, and you are there watching him. And I am there telling you this story, and all of us are connected by the thread of the night. The festival has ended. The grinding stone is silent. The cow is sleeping, and the river is still flowing. There is nothing left to do but to rest. The body is heavy, the mind is soft, and the story is almost ready to let you go. But not quite yet. There is one more scene I want to paint for you. It is a scene that takes place on the roof of the farmer's house, a few nights after the festival. The moon is a thin crescent, like a fingernail clipping, and the sky is so clear that you can see the faint band of the Milky Way, the river of stars that the Sumerians called the tear of the goddess. The farmer lies on his mat, his hands behind his head, staring up. His wife is beside him, and their youngest child is between them, asleep, breathing in the shallow rhythm of a child who trusts the world. The farmer is not thinking about the canals, or the shaduf, or the next planting. He is not thinking about anything at all. He is simply present, feeling the cool air on his skin, hearing the distant bark of a dog, watching the stars move slowly across the sky. And in that moment, he is content. He does not need to be happy or excited or ambitious. He just needs to be, and he is. And you, too, are content, are lying in your own bed, or sitting in your chair, or curled up on your sofa, and you are letting the story carry you away. There is no need to hold on. There is no need to remember every detail. The story is a river, and you are drifting in it. You are safe. You are warm. You are loved by the night. The farmers of Mesopotamia are gone now. Their canals are dry, their cities buried under sand. But their rhythm is still here. It is in the way you breathe, in the way your heart beats, in the way the seasons turn. They live on in the seeds we plant, in the beer we drink, in the stories we tell. And in this moment, they live in you. So let them go. Let them return to the earth from which they came. Let the shadow fall silent. Let the canals fill with dust. Let the reeds wither. They do not need you to hold them. They are part of the great cycle, and they are content. And you, my listener, are part of that cycle too. You are ready for a deep, dreamless sleep, a sleep that will hold you until the morning light touches your face. There is nothing more to say. The words have done their work. The story is complete, even though it never really ends. It simply fades, like a fire burning down to embers, like a river flowing into the sea. You are drifting now into the vast, quiet stillness where all stories go when they are finished. And it is beautiful. Rest now. And it is beautiful. But before you drift off completely, there is another memory that floats up from the silt of the past. It is a memory of the woman who grinds the barley, the one whose hands know the weight of the stone. She is not only a grinder of grain, she is also a weaver of reeds, a maker of baskets, a keeper of the fire. Her fingers are deft and patient, and they move in patterns as old as the river itself. In the afternoon, when the sun is high and the house is cool, she sits on a mat in the shade of the mud wall, and she gathers a bundle of reeds from the pile beside her. She separates them by thickness, by color, by the way they bend, and she begins to weave. The reeds are from the marshes, and they still carry the dampness of the river. They smell of mud and green things, of the slow-moving water where the birds hide. She takes 3 reeds in her left hand, 3 in her right, and she crosses them over and under, in a rhythm that is older than words. It is the same rhythm her mother taught her, and her grandmother before that, and her great-grandmother, all the way back to the first woman who ever wove a basket on the banks of the Euphrates. The pattern does not change. It does not need to change. It is perfect, like the turning of the seasons. The basket will hold grain. It will hold dates or figs, or the soft white cheese she makes from the cow's milk. It will hold the baby when she works in the field, strapped to her back with a cloth. The basket is not just a tool. It is a vessel for life. And as she weaves, she hums a little song, not really a song, just a rising and falling of breath, a melody that has no name. It is the sound of contented work, the sound of a woman who knows her place in the world and does not need to question it. Her daughter watches her, a small girl of maybe 5 or 6 years, sitting cross-legged in the dust. The girl has a piece of reed in her hand, and she is trying to copy her mother. She cannot yet make the over and under pattern. Her fingers are too clumsy, too impatient. But she watches and she learns, and one day she will weave baskets that are just as strong, just as beautiful. This is how the wisdom is passed, not through schools or books, but through the quiet repetition of hands. The mother does not explain. She simply weaves, and the daughter watches, and the watching is the teaching. Now the sun is beginning to slant, and the shadows grow long. The farmer is returning from the field. He is tired, his shoulders aching from the pull of the shadow, his feet caked with dry mud. He carries a small bundle of greens for the cow and a few ears of barley that he will give to the woman for the evening meal. He does not call out when he reaches the house. He just stands for a moment, looking at his wife and daughter, at the basket taking shape, at the fire smoldering in the hearth. And he feels a quiet gratitude, not for anything specific, but for the simple fact that the day is over and they are all still here. He sits down on the threshold, and the cow low from the stable, and the dog, a scruffy creature with one ear torn, comes and lays its head on his knee. The farmer scratches the dog behind the good ear, and the dog sighs, a sound of pure satisfaction. There is no dinner yet. The woman will grind the flour and make the bread, and they will dip it in oil and perhaps have a few dates, and that will be enough. They do not need more. They have each other. They have the shelter of the house. They have the river and the fields and the promise of another season. And this is the part of the story I want you to hold on to, my listener. It is the part that cannot be found in any textbook or museum. It is the moment when the family sits together in the cooling dusk, and no one speaks, and the silence is full. The crickets begin their evening chorus, a sound like tiny bells, and a bat flits across the sky, and the stars appear, one by one, as if someone is lighting candles in a vast, dark room. The children yawn. The mother puts down her weaving. The father leans his head against the wall. They are ready for sleep. But before they sleep, there is one more task. The mother pours water over her hands, then over the hands of her daughter, then over the hands of her son. She murmurs a prayer to the river goddess, who is also the goddess of the hearth and the home. It is a simple prayer, just a few words. Let the water remember us. Let the mud be kind. Let the bread rise. The children repeat after her, their voices small and sleepy. And then they lie down on their mats, and the mother covers them with a thin cloth woven from goat hair, and she sits beside them until their breathing becomes slow and even. The farmer does not pray. He is not a man of many words, but he stands at the door for a long time, looking at the darkening landscape. The canals are silver threads in the moonlight. The fields are black and silent. He thinks of the seeds he will plant tomorrow, of the grain he will harvest in the spring, of the beer he will drink at the next festival. He thinks of his father, who taught him to guide the plow. He thinks of his grandfather, who told him stories of the great flood that had come long ago, a flood so vast that it covered the whole world. He does not know if the story is true, but it does not matter. The story is a thread that connects him to the past, and he holds it carefully. And then he, too, lies down. The house is dark. The fire has burned down to coals, glowing like rubies in the hearth. The cow is silent. The dog is curled at the foot of the mat. The river is a distant whisper, and the farmer closes his eyes, and he is gone, falling into a sleep so deep that it feels like the earth itself is holding him. Now, I want to take you into that sleep, my listener. Not into the farmer's dreams, for dreams are private, but into the feeling of the night itself. The night in Mesopotamia is not like the night you know. There is no electric light, no hum of traffic, no glow of a screen. The night is absolute. It is a blanket of darkness so thick that you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. The only light comes from the stars, and from the moon when it rises, and from the tiny flame of a lamp that someone might have left burning in the doorway. The darkness is not frightening. It is soft, like a mother's embrace. It wraps around the village, around the fields, around the river, and it holds everything in a quiet stillness. And in that stillness, the world breathes. The mud bricks of the house exhale the heat of the day. The reeds in the marshes sigh. The water in the canals moves with a soft, lapping sound, like a cat drinking. The barley plants in the fields grow a little taller, invisible in the dark, their roots reaching down into the damp earth. The whole landscape is alive, even in sleep. It is not dead. It is resting, gathering strength for the morning. There is an old belief among the farmers that the night is the time when the gods walk the earth. They come down from the sky or up from the underworld, and they wander through the fields, checking on the crops, listening to the prayers that have been whispered into the earth. They are not visible to human eyes, but you can feel their presence like a shift in the air, like a warmth that passes through you. And if you are fortunate, you might catch a glimpse of them in your dreams. A figure with a crown of reeds, a woman with hair like rain, a man with a staff shaped like a serpent. They do not speak. They do not need to. They are the guardians of the cycle, the protectors of the seed and the soil. So the farmer sleeps, and the gods walk, and the night deepens. And you, my listener, are there too, lying in your own bed, your eyes closed, your body heavy. You can feel the darkness around you, not as an absence, but as a presence. It is the same darkness that covered the ancient villages, the same darkness that the farmers knew. It is a comfort. It is a reminder that you are part of something larger than yourself, something that has existed since the beginning of time. Let us stay in this darkness for a while. There is no need to rush. There is no need to think. Just let the images drift through your mind like clouds. A basket half woven, a cow's warm breath, star that flickers like a candle, a hand reaching for another hand in the dark, a child's sigh, a prayer that has been repeated for 5,000 years, and now a new sound. It is the sound of water, but not the river. It is the sound of a small stream, a canal that has been opened to water a field. The farmer has set the gate in the canal wall, a simple wooden board that he lifts, and the water flows out, spreading across the dry soil in a thin sheet. It makes a gurgling sound, like a baby laughing. It is the most beautiful sound in the world to a farmer, because it means life. The water seeps into the cracks. It fills the pores. It reaches the roots of the barley plants, and they drink. They drink so eagerly that you can almost hear them, a faint rustle of leaves, a sigh of satisfaction. The farmer does not watch. He has gone back to his mat, to his sleep. But the water knows its job. It will spread until the field is saturated, and then it will stop, and the ground will be soft and dark, ready for the sun to warm it the next day. The duckweed will grow in the canal, and the frogs will come, and the birds will feed, and the whole ecosystem will thrive. all because of a single wooden board lifted in the middle of the night. And there is a word for this moment. It is a word in the old Sumerian language, a word that has not been spoken for thousands of years. The word is gestu. It means the act of releasing water into a field, the trust that the water will find its way. It is a word that holds both the farmer's intention and the river's cooperation. It is a word that understands that control is an illusion, that the best a person can do is to set the water free and let it do its work. Think of the gestu as you drift. Think of all the times you have released something, not knowing where it would go. A word spoken, a seed planted, a promise made. You do not hold the outcome. You only hold the intention. And the water finds its way, just as it has always done, just as it will always do. So let go now, my listener. Let go of the story. Let go of the day. Let go of the need to understand. The water is flowing. The night is deep. The stars are turning. And you are safe, wrapped in the same blanket of darkness that covered the ancient farmers, the same darkness that holds the memory of the gestu, the same darkness that will carry you into a sleep as deep and as peaceful as the river itself. There is a village far away, in a land that has become sand, and in that village, a family is sleeping. And the woman who weaves baskets is dreaming of her mother. And the girl who watches is dreaming of a basket that she will one day weave herself. And the farmer is dreaming of water. And they are all dreaming of you, even though they do not know your name. Their dreams are like ripples in the water, spreading across time, touching the shore of your own sleep. And you feel it, that soft touch, like a breath on your cheek. It is the touch of the ancient world, reminding you that you are not alone, that you have always been connected to the river, to the reeds, to the grinding stone, to the sound of a cow's soft moo. You are part of this story. You are part of every story, and the stories are not finished. They are still happening in the quiet hours of the night, in the space between your heartbeats. Rest now. There is nothing more to do. The shaduf is still. The basket is woven. The water has been released. The gods are walking. And you are drifting, drifting into the deep and timeless night, where all things are held and all things are at peace. And yet, even in that deep and timeless night, the mind sometimes stirs. It remembers the burning heat of the afternoon sun, the memory of sweat and dust that lingers in the bones long after the coolness of evening has settled. The farmer who sleeps so peacefully, his chest rising and falling, his dreams filled with water and reeds. He has spent the day under a sun that does not forgive. It is a sun that rises with a clear, hard light, and by mid-morning the air shimmers above the cracked earth. The barley leaves curl in defense, trying to hold every drop of moisture they can. The farmer knows this heat. He knows it as a friend and as an enemy. It is the same sun that ripens the grain, but it is also the sun that will kill it if the water does not come in time. So he has learned to work with the sun, not against it. He wakes before the first light, when the stars are still bright and the air is cool and smells of damp soil. He eats a small breakfast of barley bread and dates, and he drinks a little beer, just enough to give him strength. Then he walks to the field while the shadows are still long, and he does the heaviest work first. He checks the canals. He lifts the shaduf. He moves the water from the river to the irrigation channels, one bucket at a time. He works in silence, his movements slow and deliberate, like a dance he has known all his life. And when the sun climbs high and the heat becomes a weight on his shoulders, he stops. He does not push himself. He knows that the heat is a force that cannot be fought, only endured. He goes to the shade. This is an important word, shade, a word that carries the memory of coolness. In the land of Mesopotamia, shade is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Every house has a small area under a roof or beneath a canopy of woven reeds where the air is a few degrees cooler and the light is soft. The farmer sits there during the hottest hours of the day. Sometimes he lies down and naps. Sometimes he weaves a rope or sharpens a tool. Sometimes he just sits and watches the heat shimmer on the ground, and he thinks of nothing at all. And the rest of the village does the same. The children play in the shadows, their laughter low and drowsy. The women take their weaving indoors, where the walls are thick and keep the heat out. The animals find their own shadows, the cow standing under a scraggly date palm, the dog digging a hole in the damp earth near the canal. There is a rhythm to the day that is as old as the sun itself. It is a rhythm of work and rest, of heat and coolness, of labor and stillness. The farmer does not fight the heat because he knows that the heat is a part of the cycle. The same sun that burns him also dries the barley after the harvest, making it ready for storage. The same sun that cracks the earth also hardens the mud bricks for the house. The sun is not an enemy. It is a partner, albeit a demanding one. And then, in the late afternoon, when the shadows begin to lengthen again, the farmer returns to the field. The air is still warm, but there is a hint of relief in the breeze. He works until the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple. And then he goes home, to the house that was built with mud and straw, to the fire that his wife has lit, to the simple meal of barley soup and fish from the river. He eats slowly, savoring each bite. He talks a little, but not much. He is tired, but it is a good tired, the kind of tired that comes from honest work. And so the days pass, one after another, like beads on a string. The farmer does not keep a calendar. He does not need to. He watches the moon. He watches the stars. He feels the temperature of the wind. He knows when the flood will come because the elders have told him, and the river has told him, and his own body has told him. And when the flood comes, he is ready. He has reinforced the levees. He has cleared the canals. He has stored enough grain to last through the weeks when the fields are under water. The flood is not a disaster. It is a restoration. It is the river's gift to the land. And the flood comes with a sound that is both terrifying and beautiful. It is a low rumble at first, like thunder in the distance. Then it becomes a roar as the water surges over the banks and spreads across the plain. The farmer hears it from his house, and he feels it in the ground beneath his feet. He does not panic. He goes to the door, and watches the water rise, slowly, steadily, covering the fields he has worked so hard to cultivate. He knows that the water will destroy some of the young plants that were planted too early. He knows that it will wash away the mole trenches and the small ridges he built. But he also knows that it will bring new soil, rich and dark and full of nutrients. It will soften the ground for the next planting. It will drown the pests that had started to nibble at the roots. It is a reset, a beginning again. And then the flood recedes. It takes days, sometimes weeks. The water slowly drains back into the river, or it sinks into the earth, leaving behind a layer of mud that glistens in the sun. The farmer walks out onto his field, his bare feet sinking slightly into the wet soil. He can smell the dampness, the clay, the tiny bits of organic matter that have been deposited. It is a smell of fertility, of promise. He nods to himself. He knows what to do next. The planting season begins again. The seed drill, the plow, the careful placement of each barley grain into the furrow. The farmer works with a sense of hope that is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, like the water that slowly soaks into the earth. He does not expect a miracle. He expects a harvest, but he knows that the harvest depends on many things he cannot control. The sun, the rain, the river, the birds, the insects, the gods. He does his part, and he trusts that the world will do its part. And you, my listener, lying in your bed, you can feel that trust. It is a feeling not of certainty, but of acceptance. The farmer accepts that the flood may come too early or too late. He accepts that the summer may be hotter than usual. He accepts that the locusts may swarm, or the disease may spread, or the war may come. He does not live in fear of these things. He lives in the moment, doing what needs to be done, and then he rests. And that is a lesson that the ancient world offers to you quietly, without any demand. It is a lesson that says, you cannot control the river, but you can lift the shadow. You cannot stop the sun, but you can sit in the shade. You cannot change the flood, but you can repair the levee. And when the night comes, you can close your eyes and sleep, because you have done what you could. There is a word in the language of these farmers, a word that has no perfect translation. It is the word entiman. It means something like the calm that comes after the flood, the moment when the water has receded and the land is soft and quiet, and the farmer stands at the edge of his field, not yet working, just looking. It is a pause, a breath, a stillness that holds the memory of the water's power and the anticipation of the new growth. Entiman is a word that belongs to the space between actions, the place where hope lives without urgency. I want you to feel that word now as you lie in your bed. You do not need to pronounce it. You do not need to remember it. Just let its meaning drift into your mind, like the water that once covered the fields of Sumer. Entiman. It is the moment before you plant the seed, the moment after the rain stops, the moment when you are neither starting nor finishing, but simply being. It is a gift from the past, a whisper in the ear of your sleep. And now, let us move to another moment. It is the middle of the night, and the farmer is awake. He has woken for no reason, or perhaps for a reason he does not understand. He sits up on his mat, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. He does not light a lamp. He does not want to disturb his wife and daughter. He listens. The river is low tonight. The frogs are silent. The air is cool and still. He hears something, a sound that is almost inaudible, like the beating of a moth's wings. It is the sound of the water in the canals, moving slowly, steadily, under the light of the moon. He feels a gratitude well up inside him, a gratitude not for anything specific, but for the whole of it. For the land, the water, the seed, the sun, the night. For the fact that he is here, alive, in this body, in this time. He does not pray. He just sits and feels the gratitude. And then he lies down again, and he sleeps. And in the morning he will wake, and he will go to the field, and he will work, and the cycle will continue. But the moment of gratitude, that quiet middle of the night feeling, it stays with him. It becomes a part of him, like the calluses on his hands, or the taste of barley on his tongue. It is what keeps him going through the burning summers and the uncertain floods. It is the thread that connects him to the sacred. There is another word, a word that describes this feeling. It is shu'ila, which means the lifting of the hands. It is a gesture of prayer, of offering, of gratitude. But it is not a grand gesture. It is a small movement, a raising of the palms, a moment of openness. The farmer might do it when he first sees the sun rise, or when he takes a drink of water, or when he holds his daughter's hand. It is a way of saying, without words, that he is part of something larger. And you, my listener, can do the same. You can lift your hands, even just in your mind, and feel the connection to the river and the barley and the ancient farmer who once stood in a field and did the same thing. It is a simple act, but it is powerful. It is a way of bringing the past into the present, of weaving your own small life into the great tapestry of human experience. And so the night continues. The stars turn. The moon sets. The world is quiet. The farmer sleeps, and his wife sleeps, and his daughter sleeps, and the cow sleeps, and the dog sleeps, and the barley sleeps in the earth, and the river sleeps in its banks, and the whole of Mesopotamia sleeps under the vast and patient sky. And you sleep too, or you drift on the edge of sleep, your thoughts becoming soft and formless like clouds. You are not thinking anymore. You are just being in the darkness, being in the silence, being in the presence of all the farmers who have ever lived, all the floods that have ever come, all the seeds that have ever been planted. You are part of that story. You always have been. There is no need to hold on to anything. The shaduf is lowered. The basket is empty. The water has been released. The gods have returned to their places. The only thing left is the feeling of peace, a peace that is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of acceptance. The farmer accepts the flood. The farmer accepts the heat. The farmer accepts the night. And you accept this moment exactly as it is. So rest now, truly rest. Let the sound of my voice become like the distant murmur of the river, rising and falling, carrying you gently. Let the images of the ancient world fade into the background, like stars at dawn. You do not need to remember any of this. You only need to feel it, the way you feel the softness of your pillow, the warmth warmth of your blanket, the weight of your own body settling into the mattress. You are here. You are safe. You are held. And the farmer, the one we have been visiting, he is still there in his mud brick house, in his deep sleep. His daughter has rolled over, her small hand reaching out in the dark, touching her mother's arm. The woman, half awake, moves closer to her daughter, wrapping her in a protective embrace. The dog lifts its head, sniffs the air, and drops its head back down. The cow shifts in its stall, its hooves making a soft sound on the packed earth. And outside, the river continues its ancient journey, carrying water from the mountains to the sea, carrying the memory of every flood, every farmer, every seed. It does not stop. It never stops. It is the heartbeat of the land. And you are part of that river too, not as a drop of water, but as a presence, a witness, a traveler who has walked alongside the farmers of Mesopotamia and now rests at the edge of their fields, your eyes closing, your breath slowing, your mind letting go of everything it has held. There is nothing else to do, no more words to hear, no more stories to follow. Only this, the feeling of being exactly where you are, in the quiet of the night, in the company of the past, in the embrace of the present. Sleep well, my listener. Sleep deeply as the farmer sleeps. And when you wake, the morning will be new, and the world will be waiting for you. And you will carry with you the quiet strength of the ancient farmers, the knowledge that you too can survive the floods and the burning summers, and that after every night there is a dawn. And that is the final word, the one that does not need to be spoken. Dawn. It comes as it always comes, as it will always come, bringing light and warmth and the promise of another day. And so the story ends, not with a conclusion, but with a beginning. The farmer wakes. He blinks in the soft light. He rises. And you too will wake in your own time, in your own way. But for now, rest, rest. The river flows. The night deepens, and you are free. And so the river flows, and the night deepens, and you are free. Free to let your mind wander where it will, free to drift along the current of your own thoughts. The river, you see, has its own language, a language of sound that does not need words. It speaks in the soft, lapping against the mud brick quay, in the gurgle of water slipping through a small gap in a canal gate, in the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface for a moment before disappearing again into the darkness. The farmer knows this language. He learned it as a child, sitting on the bank with his father, watching the stars reflect on the water like tiny lamps floating on an infinite black cloth. He remembers those evenings, the way his father would point to a particular star and say a name for it, a name that has long since been forgotten by most of the world. He remembers the warmth of his father's hand on his shoulder, the smell of the river, a mixture of wet earth and reeds, and something ancient, something that seemed to have no beginning and no end. He remembers the silence that was not really silence, but the sound of the world breathing. And he remembers the feeling, that same feeling he feels now in the middle of the night, of being part of something that was here long before him and will remain long after. That is the gift of the river. It is a teacher of patience, a reminder that time moves at its own pace, not yours. You cannot hurry the river. You cannot tell it to rise faster or to slow down. You can only watch and wait and learn to read its moods. The farmer learned to read the river the way you might learn to read the face of a dear friend. He knows when it is tired, when it is angry, when it is generous. He knows the subtle changes in its color, the way it turns a certain shade of brown when rain is coming from the mountains, the way it glitters with a particular light when the moon is full. And now, in the quiet of this night, the river is calm. It is the calm of a creature that has spent its strength and now rests. The flood season has passed, and the river has given its gift to the land. The fields are saturated, the canals are full, and the water is slowly seeping into the soil, carrying with it the silt that will feed the barley and the wheat and the date palms. The farmer knows this, even in his sleep. He knows that the work of the river is not done, but the work of the river is not his work. His work will come in the morning, when he must guide the water into the furrows, directing it with his hands and his shovel and his patience. There's a scene that the farmer loves, a scene that he carries in his mind like a secret treasure. It is the moment when the first water from the river enters the field. The earth is dry and cracked, and the water seems to hesitate at first, as if unsure of its new home. Then it finds a crack, and it flows into it, and suddenly the whole field comes alive. The water spreads like a living thing, reaching into every crevice, covering every clod of earth, bringing the soil back to itself. The farmer stands at the edge of the field, his feet in the mud, and he watches the water take possession. He does not direct it now. He lets it find its own way. It is a dance, a slow and ancient dance between water and earth, and he is the witness. You can imagine that now, if you like. You can imagine the water moving across the field, dark and slow, carrying bits of straw and tiny seeds that have been waiting for just this moment. You can imagine the smell of the wet earth, rich and deep, a smell that is almost like the smell of bread baking, because it is the smell of life becoming possible. And you can imagine the farmer standing in the stillness, his hands resting at his sides, his breath slow and even, his heart beating in time with the pulse of the water. He does not think about the burning summer that will come. He does not think about the heat that will turn the mud to dust and the water to vapor. He does not think about the weeds that will rise up, or the insects that will come, or the storms that might break the levees. He does not think about any of that. He is only present in this moment, in the cool of the evening, in the sight of the water doing what water does. It is a form of prayer, this presence. It is a form of the shu'ila, the lifting of the hands. Only the hands are not raised, they are at rest, and the prayer is not spoken, it is felt. And the river, in its turn, seems to respond. It seems to say, I am here. I have always been here. I will always be here. You are not alone. And the farmer hears this, not with his ears, but with his bones. He hears it in the way his feet sink into the mud, in the way the cool air touches his face, in the way the stars wheel slowly overhead. He is not alone. He has never been alone, and neither are you. Even now, in the quiet of your own room, in the soft light or the soft dark, you are not alone. The river of time flows around you, carrying the stories of all who came before. The farmer is there, just beyond the edge of your vision, standing in his field, watching the water. The water is there, dark and patient, moving through the canals. The stars are there, ancient and untroubled, shining down on the land of the two rivers. And you are there in the center of it all, held by the past, cradled by the present, touched by the peace that comes when you simply allow yourself to be. So let yourself be. Let the weight of your body settle into the mattress. Let your breath find its own natural rhythm. Let your thoughts drift like the water in the field, spreading out into the quiet corners of your mind. You do not have to hold on to anything. You do not have to remember the farmer or the river or the word Mayan. They are a part of you now, woven into the fabric of your own story. They will remain, even if you never think of them again. They will remain like the silt in the soil, enriching the ground from which new things will grow. And so the night continues, and the river flows, and the farmer sleeps, and you rest. There's nothing more to do. There's nothing more to say. Only this, rest. Rest in the knowledge that you are part of a long and gentle story. A story that does not demand anything from you. A story that only asks you to be here, to breathe, to feel the softness of the moment. Rest as the farmer rests. Rest as the river rests. Rest as the night itself rests, holding you in its quiet and patient embrace. The stars will turn, and the dawn will come, and you will wake to a new day. But that is a story for another time. For now, there is only this, the slow, soft, steady rhythm of your own breath, the warmth of your own body, the deep and forgiving silence of the night. And the river, always the river, carrying you gently to the place where all stories end and all stories begin. Sleep, dear listener. Sleep,